What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Tell Me More podcast presented by Major League Success. I have Mr. Byron Diaz with us from Next Home Experience. And, this is the second time that you're on this show. Those that kind of know my experience with podcasting, and this is what it's funny because, I go through the same stuff that all of us realtors go through when we're trying to implement new things. And you were a part of my first go-round of agent interviews. And back then we used to call it Agent Spotlight. I don't know if you remember that or not. But Byron, I appreciate you coming on the show and joining me and just talking about your journey of getting into real estate.
Yeah, thanks for having me again.
Yeah, so I think we connected right around when COVID was happening as far as the last interview. And I want to kind of just catch up on things, and talk about kind of how has business been for you, through COVID. Like, did anything change in your world when all that went down?
Luckily, no, COVID wasn't an issue for me or my clients. Really my base. I think here in Columbus, and this is something that I kind of need to be more vocal on, but I think investors look for disaster to happen, and then that's when they come in and they wanna just buy more. That's what I've been trying to listen to more content from all over the place and really try to soak in what has happened in the past. And investors love stuff like that, whether it's in real estate or the stock market, or really wherever they can get their hands on that's cheap, and that'll eventually hold its value. They love stuff like that. So I think after the pandemic, it was, but I'm starting to see that in my business, a lot of, especially Q1, a lot of my investors are the ones making me the most money because, the money just doesn't stop. There's no excuse to go out there to make money, where my retail buyers are always looking for the perfect time, or, they're like, oh, well, it's too cold, or the market's too slow, or they kind of make those excuses. But my investors really don't. My investors are always looking, no matter if there's snow on the ground or not, or whatever's happening outside. Yeah, the pandemic did it, but this year I haven't seen a shift for me, but there's different things that have affected my clients. Like, I think for most of my career, for the most part, I have seen low interest rates.
Yeah.
And I think really the only thing that's been constant for me in my business, I guess, has always been the low inventory. But now we're trying to solve that. And after traveling and checking out different cities like Atlanta, being in New York a lot, and going up to places like Vegas and even in Florida, where there's a lot of development. I think Columbus is no different. I think eventually, when somebody says Columbus, in about 20 years, it's going to include places like Lancaster, places like Marion, Delaware. Like, it's all going to be synonymous with what Columbus is, especially now with the new plant, the new Intel plant that everybody's talking about.
Yeah.
All of that is just going to be, and all the construction that's going on and all the need for construction. So I think my retail buyers, and from what I'm hearing from other agents as well, they're starting to be open to, these markets that are a little bit, outside of Columbus, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour. Um, because I think Columbus is starting to get, big and a little bit more congested, every year. And so there's all this growth. But I still have a big heart for first time home buyers. I still very much push the narrative that, everybody should, even if you don't want to be, a Donald Trump of real estate, you know, at least have a small portfolio of 2 to 3 houses. If you can use your FHA loan to acquire them, even better, because that means you didn't pay much relatively out of pocket.
Right.
And you didn't pay much. So I'm still sticking to that, but yeah, it's been um, it's been hard uh, for for buyers, and it's crazy because I can only imagine what it is for other people, because normally um, I'm telling my clients to lower their expectations. I think right now we're at like 20. I thought I was going to shoot for 90 this year, but this year, I'm only at, it's the middle of June, I'm only at like 30 transactions.
Wow. That's still awesome. So
Yeah.
I wanted to, how much of your business is investor based? How much is retail based? Do you know off the top of your head? Because, you said something that, I always tell all of our agents, and it's, I always talk about, agents, you can't be nervous to pivot, to do things a little bit differently. And you mentioned that, investors look for chaos, or, look for, times when the market's, coming down or something's happening. Right. And,
Yeah.
I always tell agents, real estate never stops. There's always going to be people that are buying and selling. Real estate's always going to be moving. And if real estate ever does come to a complete halt or stop, then we got other issues that we really need to be concerned about, at least here in the United States, because it's one of the largest sectors of our whole economy.
Yeah.
Right. So people are always going to need to buy. People are always going to need to sell. People are always going to need a roof to live under. But did you see that? And it's funny because a lot of people that I talked to during that time, their business grew, their business took off, right? But it was just a different way about going about doing real estate.
Mm-hmm.
That's when things started to get a little crazy as far as how fast things were selling, right? And that pickup. But did you switch a little bit to focus more on investors when that was happening and less on retail, or has it always been kind of your business model to have both?
I think just from lack of knowledge, the investor side came back before the pandemic. The investor side came to me naturally because a lot of my clients were pretty handy. A lot of my clients were doing a lot of the rehab work around the hospital, around children's and all these places. And still, to this day, a lot of my clients do a lot of the blue collar work when it comes to, remodeling or construction here in Columbus. And so when I was on a team, I saw that there were people with money on the sidelines, like in our database, but they really weren't moving that capital. And that's actually like a good question, because now what's more prevalent in my business, and I've probably used that product twice and then had about 2 or 3 clients use it this year, is hard money. That's like huge. And when I've had listings that needed rehab, I had an influx of a lot of offers with, hard money loans. So that's one example of how it pivoted. But my investors, also take up less of my time, but make me probably as much um, as my retail buyers. But when my past retail buyers that have bought have a lot of equity,
Yeah.
and now, credit wise, the bank sees them differently because now they've had time with a mortgage, um, and they've gone on to, purchase a second home, so like, that's without selling their first home. So I think it's big, I think it's so important to, I don't look at so much the commission check, I don't look so much at the pre-approval. I'm more focused on the desire to own a house, because you might give somebody all the information now, um, and you might tell them like, hey, this can't happen. You give them a game plan, but it's another thing for them to go through it. And a lot of my clients that probably were like, when I told them like, hey, you could have multiple houses, they probably weren't interested, and or just probably didn't understand. So they, it kind of went, through one year and out the other. But once they actually got into the house, and then now they see a lot of equity, and now they understand what equity is, it's a total game changer, and the energy changes. And it's like, well, let's start tomorrow. Like, let me refinance my house, and let's start tomorrow to find that second house. And, I want to do it again. And, and that's probably the best part. And that's why I uh, love the first time home buyers, because of that. It's like, you're you're sowing the seeds, and everybody has to start somewhere. My investors all started somewhere.
Yep.
The ones that are super successful, tell me, we sit and laugh when we talk about the stories of, like, the first flips, or all the mistakes that they made in the beginning. And so I think eventually I will probably have agents under me. And I think my broker, always, he had stress. If you have 10 clients that you just work with, and they're the ones making you the most money, life as a real estate agent is pretty easy. And that's, I'm starting to see a little bit of that now. And I kind of, if I had, mentees and agents under me, that's something that I would definitely, um, push towards. And the beauty of it is, now that Columbus is growing, I feel like with all these cities and new constructions, there's so many opportunities to go out and create these types of relationships with uh, with other people.
Yeah. I wanted to touch base. You mentioned, educating, or your clients becoming a little bit more educated on the equity and the power of that. Is that something that you focused on with them? Like, do you do seminars around that stuff, or is it more of just through your conversations of helping them understand real estate just as a whole?
My business, and this could change, but my business uh, has not been focused on reaching the masses.
Right.
My business has been more like white glove, um, more sit down with you, have an intimate conversation, um, you know, and make sure that you as an individual um, understand uh, what is being, what you're being told, and what's being explained to you.
Yeah, I think that's a huge opportunity right now, that, those agents that have been in the business for 3, 4, 5+ years, that have had clients buy, in 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020. That's a great value add reach out. Hey, let's connect. Like, I was just running numbers, in your neighborhood, and I saw that you possibly have about 70 grand of equity. I would love to sit down with you, just kind of explain to you, what some of your options are. And I think as a real estate agent, I think that's one of the best reach outs that you could possibly have. Because equity is great, but if it's untouched and you can't access it, then it doesn't mean anything, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, what can I do with this? Right. Like, how can I use this as a tool to go and grow, more opportunities for myself and for your clients?
Yeah. When I hired the assistant, her name is Kim. She was also in charge of doing social media, and mainly on Instagram, and put stuff out on Facebook, because I think Facebook is showing its age, but I think it's still very effective. I think everybody wants to be on Facebook. It still has that pull, that it still has a way of keeping eyeballs on it. And really, like, through social media, I've kept a lot of clients engaged, and I've been able to kind of have that repeat business. Uh, you know, uh, Probably half of the clients that have bought for a second or third time have so because of the information pushed out on social media. So I'm starting to see the value in that. Still, pretty self-conscious about social media, but we'll work on that. I think a little bit of alcohol.
Yeah, I mean, what I found is, even like myself, like, to be consistent on social media, I needed to bring in someone to help me be consistent, right? And this is what I tell agents all the time. And that's why I was curious of your investors versus your retail, and kind of how you went about it is, you pick 2 to 3 business pillars that you want to really focus on and just lean in on those, and then you hire out either within those business pillars things that you're not the greatest at, or if you want to add something else to your business and you're not consistent with it, you hire someone out to help you. And that's just me too. Social media is an important, is it the end all be all? No, but is it an important, aspect of all of our businesses? Sure. I think we need to be present there. And, yeah, I mean, all it takes is 1 or 2 people to come directly from that for you to start to see some of the power that it has, right?
Yeah, definitely. Oh, and I also, I think last year, I was, and it was just purely just for fun. I was hanging out with another kid in my office, Jamar Alls, and I saw that his business was 100% social media, and I was like, I saw the kind of money that he was making, and I was like, well, there's, even if I'm not gonna go full go at it, even though I don't need it, um, I don't need to make the extra money. It's good to have that social media presence, and because I kind of socialize a lot, especially on the weekend. Uh, it's kind of pretty cool to pull out your Instagram while you're talking to somebody and say, like, here, because we put out information, we put out what's sold, we put out um, client testimony, client reviews, and
Yeah.
just to have that, and just the way that it looks, like, easily, people are just like, here, take my number, let's connect.
Yeah.
So, in that way, it has helped out a lot as well.
Now, I know, when I had you on last, I believe you were on a team at the time, and I believe one of your focuses was kind of niching down your business. And now you're kind of on your own, correct, with an assistant. Kind of walk me through kind of that process, that transition. I think a lot of people, get worried or concerned about that transition of leaving a team and going out on their own. Did you have much thought into that, or was it kind of just a natural thing for you?
I think really, I would probably say, I think the level of support for me was a little too good to be true. and I kind of doubted that, but really now, like, it's not it's not surprising to go to an appointment and, you know, we at least with that person in my niche market, because they're part of the niche market, will they will have already known at least two people that I know or that I have sold a house to. Um, and and uh, my client base is super super loyal. Um, you know, uh, yeah, it was scary, but I think
But you were already producing at a high level at that point, right?
yeah, it was everything was like the numbers were going up
Yeah.
in a very short period of time. And luckily, I don't do less than, well, I haven't done less than 50 transactions, year over year. So, um, yeah, it's been good.
Yeah. So I wanted to touch on that. You mentioned earlier your goal this year was 90 transactions, and then you just mentioned, you haven't done anything less than 50. And a lot of agents hear those big numbers, especially as a solo agent, and they're like, how? Right? Like how? How do you manage the day to day and the time invested to do that type of transaction count, that type of volume? Because that's a lot, especially if you're dealing with, and I don't know your business, buy side versus list side, but
Mm-hmm.
what is some of those management, time management, activity management type activities that are really helping you out to get to those numbers?
Yeah. Um, it's I save a lot of time because I don't have to prospect. Um, I think when I kind of didn't, when I want to do like a quick audit in my head and do some reflecting, I don't prospect. I don't do none of the cold calling, none of the door knocking. Uh, I think, my office neighbor, Nathan White, he's very big on, giving, focusing on the current client, before and after the transaction. And I think with me, like that's a big thing. My mentor, he really understood his just our market, our niche market. Um, and I think now with my assistant, when I hired her, I spent a lot of time, she spent a lot of time in the car with me, went on to a lot of like the appointments, and I kind of just pointed out like the different um, nuances of it all and kind of try to organize it for her so she could understand it, from how people, um, what are the motivations to buy a house, uh, you know, the, how life changes, understanding how life changes, how it's all different living here, the experience, the journey living here, and different for a lot of the generation, you know. So I kind of broken all that down to her. So just like really understanding all the nuances and knowing what to say and understanding who you're talking to and how to find motivation. Um, that has helped me, streamline everything. Um, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So are you just straight SOI based? You're not doing any leads or anything like that, are you?
No, I would like to learn more strategies. I think that's why, I invested uh, into the social media, and I
Yeah.
want to invest more heavily into that, into like myself. and Kim and try to see if we can grow, you know, in the marketing space. Uh,
What
and work that way. I'm also looking at different coaches as as well.
cool. And with you know, your current business and bringing in those types of numbers, are you doing anything to, I mean, what we would call raving fans, right? Like what I call raving fans is your past clients or your sphere of influence that are your biggest cheerleaders, right? That are the ones that are referring the most amount of business back to you. Do you have a system or anything that you're putting in place, or are you just kind of creating, you know, an amazing experience during the process of buying or selling that they are just remembering you?
Um, I the attention is definitely there. Um, you know, the relationship building uh, is definitely there. Really, um, understanding the small details, so then that they are raving fans. I did have a moving truck at the beginning of the year, but I unfortunately had it came with a lot of issues, so I traded it in, got rid of it, got something else, and then I have another business with a family member, and moved that right along. But uh, again, going back to understanding what people experience is like here in America. I mean, it's for a lot of them, it's a big change. I think a lot of people don't see that, but it's a huge change, and so um, um, the really the follow up, the going back to um, going back, circling back, spending time with them, really getting to know them, really hearing them out. I think is definitely the biggest thing. Um, and that's something that I've started, I really started to realize, especially this year when I do a little bit of reflecting, is especially now with technology, the consumer, and I've heard this in a lot of podcasts, the consumer has the same information as you do, right? You know, um, it's really hard to impress really anybody based on the information, you know, especially like when you're dealing with retail buyers.
Yeah.
Really hard to impress somebody with just, sheer facts. A lot of them are going to know, um, comps. A lot of them are going to know, what else is selling in the area. Um, but, um, it definitely, and that's why I try to, the long-term goals for a lot of my clients, long-term strategies, are very important. Um, and, uh, and the relationship part is very important. I'll be 100% honest, having the production is very much a luxury. But with that, you know, um, I think now I have to take advantage and really establish strong relationships with the people who are very loyal and very motivated. And I think, um, now that I'm really busy with juggling, different types of buyers, I'm more reluctant to let, the ones that um, are not going to produce me multiple transactions in the future.
Yeah. It's interesting because you're right. The consumer has so much information and knowledge at their fingertips.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's Zillow estimates, Redfin estimates, or whatever else, right? Just looking on realtor.com and seeing what's the recent solds in the neighborhood to kind of give a ballpark figure. And the one thing that, when you were talking about that stood out is, you actually take time to understand and to care about their current situation and what they're looking to accomplish. And what's the differentiator between you and every other agent that they may come in contact with, right? As agents, we all can set them up on a home search, right? We all can do certain things. How are we going to be different than other people? And I have an agent that I know who's up in the Akron, Kent area, and he's working out building experience-based clients. So as you go through the process of buying a home with his team or selling a home with his team, he's going to then be giving you experiences outside of that transaction. And it's going to be interesting to see. We read a book called Power of Moments, and he's building his team kind of around that idea. Is, look, buying a house is stressful. So, when we get to the inspection phase or, the appraisal phase, I'm going to send you away for a night out of town on me, right? Or I'm gonna send you to, here in Columbus, maybe I'm gonna send you to a crew game, or maybe I'm gonna pay for a hotel for the weekend, the first weekend of showings, so you don't have to worry about it. And for you, and what I just heard was just that, right? Really understanding the individual or the family, their current situation, what they're really trying to accomplish, and really invest time in listening. And then taking that information and then giving them that best experience in the real estate space.
Yeah.
So Byron, I want to be respectful of your time. 90 was the big number this year. What do you think for your business that you're going to have to implement in order to kind of hit that number?
That's a good question. I think that number kind of came from, last year's experience, and I knew it was a huge number.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, but interest rates went up. Inventory at the beginning of the year was, even this year, still worse than last year. I think a showing agent, I think the whole team model of, I personally think, the whole team model, and then me getting credit for, another agent. I'm not 100% sure that I like that. I do understand it.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't, I'm not 100% opposed to it. But I think, I'm going to definitely have to have, a different, another agent or two under me, to be able to accomplish that. But it has to be in a way where, because my experience in the team, in like a lot of sales-based companies, the credit is under the company,
right?
But once that person leaves, that relationship leaves as well.
Yeah, I think there's so many different ways that you could build a team. Obviously, you have kind of one way that is more support. You're going to have more expense, right? Whether that's admin support, transaction support, ISAs, calling leads, or maybe someone for your business, right? Hey, I'm going to have a client concierge person. You mentioned earlier, kind of like the white glove service. Hey, I know you have. This is one of the things that Ryan and I have been talking about, trying to figure out to put in place is, when something goes wrong with the house, no matter what it is, I want them to think to call our client concierge person, right? And our client concierge person is going to be that person that's going to give them the best experience with setting up whatever needs to be set up to have that thing looked at, checked out, whatever the case may be. Or to the point where it's anything, right? Let's just say, they're having car issues and they need a mechanic. Boom, they call the Columbus House Team because they know that we have a list of people that, either it's past clients of ours or we've had experiences with, clients have had experiences with, and handling that. I think that would be someone that would really benefit your business. So, building a team does not always have to be, I got to go and get 10 buyers agents, right? And they're all going to write, that's one way, but that doesn't have to be the only way, So you could definitely go the other side of it to where, if they're taking a lot of the other things off of your plate, like you said, I can do this many transactions because I don't prospect, right? I don't have to call leads, for 2 hours every single day or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
So yeah, I tell agents all the time, there's no way that you're going to be able to keep doing everything by your own. You got to find a way to create some of that leverage, one way or the other, have that support around you.
Yeah, and that's one of Kim's tasks as well that helps me out so much is just setting up, just preparing all the documents for an offer.
Yeah.
And I think where my model is now, definitely, I think I would be prepared for a market turn, especially if all the clients, I guess you could label them all investors, but if all of them, everybody that has the means to be able to go out and purchase multiple properties, definitely, I think we, definitely set up for speed, because I think that's something that's just not going to change no matter what market, it's like if there's a market turn down, investors are just going to come out the woodwork and, go out and buy whatever they can get their hands on. And even now, speed is the game, everything sells. Even with interest rates going up, everything is still selling as fast. Not as high, but, still, properties get on the market, and they're selling quickly.
Yeah, for sure. I always end the podcast with this one question. If you could give our audience one piece of advice, whether getting into the business, kind of just overall real estate advice as far as an agent goes that's doing your type of production, what would that piece of advice be?
I think that's a two-step process. I think what I tell a lot of people, because I've had, a few young people reach out, or, people in my circle, ask kind of like the same question. And I always say that they should, even if it's through a personality test, it just depends on, their level of, self-awareness. Figure out who you are as a person, and then maybe look into how that translates into real estate, because if you're a self-starter, then, cold calling and door knocking might be for you. But if you're somebody who's not as aggressive, then, maybe a team, maybe if you like learning under somebody, maybe a team, preferably somebody that shares the same ideals, shares the same, temperament as you, that's probably the way to go. I think in The Millionaire Real Estate Agent by Gary Keller, I think the biggest misconception is people who are the most social, the most outgoing, are the ones that are most successful. But really, that's not really the case. I think it's pretty even across all personality types, as far as, putting together all the successful agents and understanding, what the personality type is. I think, it's pretty even. I don't think one personality, I guess they were saying no personality type really has an advantage over another one. They all have their strengths and they all have the same chances of being successful.
Yeah. No, I think the self-awareness thing is one of the hardest things for people to kind of look at and to understand.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah. I think money is a great motivator. But then if but at the same time, I think it's not enough motivation. I think some people say, very cut and dry that, if you're doing it for money, then, you're not going to be successful. But um, I think that's a very lazy way of telling people that, when things get hard. I think what it is when things get hard, um, especially with, in the society that we live in, I really don't think you need a lot to live comfortably.
Yeah.
So I think understanding what motivates you, like for me, really helping people, um, is probably the biggest thing, and people have seen that time and time again. Um, but I think once things get hard and money was the only reason for you to get into real estate, you're just not. It's going to be hard to keep going. You know what I mean?
For sure. I mean, I used to tell agents, hey, what's your goal financially with real estate? What's your goal, transaction wise? And anymore, my question is what lifestyle do you want to live? Because like you said, there's going to be highs and there's definitely going to be lows. And when you hit those lows, to me, it goes back to that lifestyle, right? And if you want to have the big house and the nice cars and the trips, that's great. But that means your lifestyle is going to be a little bit different, which means your business is going to have to be a little bit different, right?
Yeah.
You may have to work 7 days a week, to order to accomplish that in the beginning. So that's kind of my new question now is like, hey, what lifestyle do you want to live? For me, it was, hey, I like 4 to 6 trips a year. Nothing crazy. I don't gotta go, from weekend trips to, a conference that I turned into a trip, right? I just wanted experiences is what I wanted. So, I think you're spot on right there with the self-awareness thing. You don't have to be, and that's why I like bringing, this podcast, right? Bringing on different, agents. We all do business differently. We all have different goals, different things that we're all trying to accomplish. And the whole goal of this conversation is if there's another agent that's out there that can relate to your story or can see that there's a different way of doing it. I hated the top listing agent, top buyer's agent, top, direct mailing agent, like I just hated that. I didn't like that. There's just so many different ways for people to make money in this business and to have a successful career. And, success is what our definition is, right? Your version's different than mine. So, but Byron, I appreciate you coming on here and catching up. It's been a minute since you and I connected anyways. So
yeah, man,
it was great chatting with you. For those that are watching, his phone number is down at the bottom. It's been scrolling at the bottom of the screen. If you're a real estate agent and you want to pick his brain on what he's doing and, how he's selling, what he's doing, make sure you reach out to him. If you are a buyer and seller here in the market, hit him up as well. He'll definitely help you in that regards. And if you're listening in, Byron, what's the best phone number for you?
614-446-9616.
Awesome. Hey, I appreciate you jumping on.
Yeah, of course, man. Take care. I'll see you soon.
All righty. Sounds good.
All right.
See ya.